Hey everybody, this is Chris Dortch from the Chattanooga Film Festival. You know that already. You know what festival you're at. I don't know why I keep saying it, but I am privileged today to talk with the crew behind one of my very favorite things that we're playing this year. And I know I'm not supposed to say that, and that technically all the films are my children, and I do love them all. But I particularly love this project and the people behind it, and I just felt that they were of a kind of our festival, and that you are all about to fall in love with them as well. So with that said, I would love to introduce the filmmaker of the film we're talking about today, which is called Someone Dies.
Hi, I'm Justin Petty, the writer and director of Someone Dies. And pass it to Amy. Oh no, we lost her.
We got her back.
Oh God.
We hear her.
Hi, I am Amy Anderson. I'm one of the actors in Someone Dies. Joey, that's all. You're the only one left.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's
thank
there's
you.
no one
Yeah.
else.
Hi, I'm Joseph Graham. I played Jim in the movie, and I'm a producer on the film.
So to kick things off, now that we've had a chance to do our intros and pass the awkward digital baton back and forth to one another, I just want to say that every year we get a ton of submissions where no one bothers to write us a director's statement or to give us the context for the world of their film in the way that you have. And I do want to pre-warn you that when we do your screening on the ground, pretty much your entire introduction is going to be me doing a dramatic reading of your director's statement, which
I
I
love
do
that.
believe is the finest I've ever received in 11 years of this. So it was a really great way of knowing that the tone we were walking into is very much the tone that we try to build this entire festival with. And also as fans of Primer and as idiots, we were like, oh man, here's one for us. Uh, uh, but I just wanted to say, and I believe you allude to this being a COVID project. I'd love to know the origins of this particular story, and how some of the elements from the sink on down to the butterfly knives, all like how did these things sort of start to find their way into the narrative of this film?
Um, geez. So this film started as a one scene short film that I was trying to we had recently finished our previous film, Nothing Really Happens, and I was trying to think of just like something small to work on. I wanted something easy and small, just a palate cleanser after being, our last movie, geez, production took a year and a half on it, which took a lot out of all of us. So I was like, I just want to do something small and quick. And I came up with this one scene idea of like we were vague. It was a drug deal, but it wasn't a drug deal, and they were both characters were confused on why they were there for this meeting, and it was essentially what Amy's character and then our other lead, John Wesling's character, she was to show up at his house and buy. I don't know even. Do you remember, Joey, if we even got as far as like finding out what she was buying from him before? I mean, ultimately, it came down to like he was just like, "This is kind of funny, but like, why don't you just keep writing? Just keep writing and change it up a little more."
Yeah,
but
from
let's add a little time travel. It's a dash of
yeah, actually, yeah, it got weirder at some point because I think even before maybe like a few months actually before the first cases of COVID or whatever, me and Justin were like, let's write something else that was different than this project that this short that you're talking about now. I was like, let's write something that's in one space again, like you were thinking already, but a feature film, and it got to be a weird sci-fi in my apartment that I live in currently. And I was just like, let's both write at the same time. And I wrote this weird thing about I don't know, people mind melding and writing an episode of Cheers, and then
It was very funny.
I, I
and then
need
you
that film in my life,
It's
truly.
gonna be hard to pull off, but it was very funny.
it became too hard to pull off, and we had a reading, and Justin was struggling with it, and I was like, why don't you pick up that thing, except throw in some weird sci-fi element like time travel, or I couldn't remember exactly what I was telling you, but I was like, just throw in something really weird to that thing and see what happens. And that's kind of how it was born, really, I think.
Yeah.
I
So like the short film kind of sat for maybe 2 years, and then yeah, when COVID happened, it just like, well, I got laid off, so write
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
we've seen so much incredible work get its start that way. And I have to say, like, hats off to all of you for the tone of this movie, which is like, I feel like you kind of set yourselves up for a rope walk that you never fall off. It stays like with this gleeful absurdism. It pulls you along into loving these characters. And I'm curious, like, if there were touchstones as you were writing and as you were kind of mashing together the elements that you'd come up with yourselves that you looked to determine what the tone of this film should be.
Yeah, so I think more tone. Initially Jim set the tone for the film. Stylistically, it was I wanted it to feel very 70s, but also kind of feel out of time. Like it happens kind of modern day, but for some reason this guy is stuck in the 70s. But I was leaning heavily on uh Ryan Gosling's character in The Nice Guys
Love
for the
that.
for
Love
the
love to
vibe.
hear that.
Like you know that he knows what he's doing, but he's also kind of a moron, and he's just kind of bumbling, but he's so confident in what he's trying to do that nobody's going to talk him out of it.
He can
uh
solve the case, but he might also fall off a fucking balcony while trying to impress a girl. It's kind of a
yeah,
situation. Love
yeah,
that. Absolutely.
and he's never going to admit his shortcomings because he's got the way and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, for us, it's like I'm a huge Spike Jones fan as a guy that grew up in the '90s era of MTV. That like immediately out of the gate, you started to nail that '70s tone and what felt like a very sabotagian way to me. And that's like to me the highest compliment I can get. I really feel like when you're dealing with something that does kind of wind in and out of period elements, you guys handled that very well as well. And I'm curious if that was a challenge, like everything from the wardrobe to the little bits of grain that we get, the way that you're putting it on screen.
I don't know if I was thinking too much about it, honestly. Like it's
That's
I don't
hard
know,
to
I
great
just thought
answer
it
answer.
was
because
So
cool,
not
man.
overthought. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
that's
well,
great.
so like I was thinking about it like like on paper when we were writing it, but like it was just, I think by the time we shot it, it had already just like in my head been like, this is what it has to be. It's got to be this. So every single day it was just like we all knew the direction we were going, and for me it was just kind of became second nature. I don't know if that's a terrible way to answer that question. Um,
No, no, I feel like that's like the most authentic way to answer that question, because it's like I feel like with certain films we find that filmmakers have this true north whether they realize they're holding the compass or not. And it's cool to know that you guys were all kind of being drawn in this direction. And I'm curious, obviously you're all friends. Like let's talk about the how this cast came together and how you guys approached the early, like I don't know if you did table readings via Zoom, but there's just so much good rapport between your entire cast. It just you feel the relationships, and I'm curious the history between all of you.
I'll let you take this one, Joey.
Sure.
You're kind of the connecting thread to us all.
That's a good point. Yeah, we did do a lot of Zoom table reads because everything was still pretty locked down. We initially had a different guy we wanted to play Jim, but I think he read once for it over Zoom, and then he was getting spotty with his schedule, and it wasn't. We kind of figured it wasn't going to work out, and I ended up reading for him a few times, and Justin liked it, so that's how I ended up as Jim. We
I want to say real quick, it wasn't just you're glossing over a huge aspect of it. He just he I don't know if he did it intentionally or if he was just like, this is what assholes sound like, but he just like immediately started reading it as Danny McBride, and I was like, that's fucking it. You're just Danny McBride is a 70s asshole, and it just I couldn't see the character as anything else after that.
Yeah, I was going for, yeah, probably a little more Danny McBride than I even know, but yeah, some Houston assholes that I know that are, in their 50s and 60s
God,
now. My dad's generation, just these dudes that hang around here. But yeah. Then I can't remember if we had John or Amy on first, probably around the same time. They both kind of came on. You wanted me to play John's character initially. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
And then I brought up John, who we worked with on some sketch stuff before, when we had did some video sketch work like a decade ago prior. And he came on. We knew he was great, and he's like kind of an improv guy and has great stuff when he's on set, and did the same thing through the Zoom meetings. And then I can't remember if you had another girl in mind, Jennifer something or another, but she didn't want to do anything during lockdowns and was staying very at home. So I knew Amy had gotten laid off too, so I invited Amy on, who I've known since since I was like 12 or 13 years old, and has a background in writing and sketch work in Chicago. And I was like, if you're willing to fly down here, we might actually shoot this thing. So that's kind of how the main characters came together. Then there's Adam, who plays Ivan, who was in our last film and was a co-producer on this. So we were just like, well, you have to be in the movie somewhere. And I think he came up with that butterfly knife thing, didn't he? I don't know.
Yeah,
We just like that. I can't explain the degree that tickles us, because this year we're doing a Faster Pussycat 60th anniversary screening, which does involve some butterfly knifery. I'm just going to go ahead and spoil that for you right now.
Oh, hell
And then
yeah.
we're like, that there is a thematic stripe this year occurring in our programming of this right now. Just makes us look like geniuses, and that we meant to do this. So thank you for being the other half of our sandwich when it comes to butterfly knifery. And also, like, I've already given you props for your director's statement, but truly one of the great poster taglines we've seen as well. And I'm sure if you've seen as we've promoted the film, I can't help myself but rip off your own words every time, because I think you put it so beautifully. And I also, there's another phrase, you explain the film as a unique take on a comedy of errors, as three farcical characters are faced with the puzzling nature of time travel and assholism. I'm not sure how to pronounce
Assholicism, yeah.
Description of it. It's a screwball comedy filled with screwballs, and the elements just.
And I'm really curious, at what point did you kind of lean fully, like, did you ever lean into sci-fi more than comedy? Was it always an attempt to strike the balance, or
I think,
did you
yeah,
kind of find that along the way? Because it sounds like you had a lot of improv and a lot of sketch folks too. So I know that kind of when you're dealing with people like that, sort of the best things maybe happen in the room.
a lot did happen in the room, and the script, like I had I had the beats of the script, what I wanted, and for the most part, the dialogue of what I wanted it to, at least the direction. But like when we got on set, it was just like, give me one, and then let's just go. Like, let's figure it out. And honestly, I would say 90% of the dialogue that made it in the movie was improv dialogue.
So there is a
lot of it
reality
was
where
their personality.
like, so fans can request their own like Snyder cut of alternate versions of this movie when they invariably fall in love with it at the festival, is what you're saying. So
No,
good to know.
I'm not going back to edit that many versions.
I understand. It takes a very special person to want to go back and do that for sure. But yeah, I'm also curious, like, the device of the sync, and sort of how confidently you reference Primer. Primer was obviously like a touchstone for this. How did you determine, obviously Bill and Ted have their phone booth. We've seen a number of interesting methods of time travel and things like that over the years. Talk about the origins of I guess what I'm asking for is sync lore. Like give me how that began.
I'm trying. Was the sync your idea ultimately, Joey? I know that we were sitting around, like, we had his apartment, and we were like, from the beginning, we were like, let's just make this one room thing, kind of like, if we made Primer, but it's stupid. And and then we were trying to, like, we were looking around his apartment, and we were like, what could be the thing? What could be the dumbest thing that could be the trigger for this time travel? And I can't remember who actually came up with it, but it was like, the fucking sync. I don't know.
I feel it feels like a you thing. You go
Can I
ahead.
just interject? That apartment also had a toilet that was being flushed with a rope coming out of the tank. So it's kind of impressive that we landed on sync.
That is really funny. I forgot about that.
It didn't start that way. We ended up with that rope within like one day of production on the film. And when I quickly realized my apartment was not made to hold 8 people or how many ever people we had on the big days of the set. It was like things are falling apart. We are just trying to keep this ship from sinking.
Now you do have the unique opportunity to expand to a full cinematic universe where it just like hops to different parts of your plumbing though. So it's like, there is that, I guess. But no, so you've created a bottle episode here. There's 8 of you in a single apartment. What's the amount of shoot time that it took to put this together? And I'm curious if there were any neighbor complaints during the shoot with that many people in your apartment complex, or if everybody was pretty cool and you kind of clued in the neighbors, like, hey, some light time travel and butterfly knifery going on next door. Everything's cool. Don't call the cops, kind of a thing.
Honestly, I think all the neighbors are pretty cool about it. When we would break for lunch, like a good handful of them would be just kind of outside, just hanging out, chatting with us and wanting to talk. I think the guy who the wizard character was ultimately based on was actually someone that lived in his apartment complex.
That's terrific.
At the end of production, he actually came by and tried to sell us weed at one point.
Oh yeah, I think I gave him some.
Didn't we actually get closer to having complaints about the neighbors? There was that one lady across the courtyard who was drunk and carried being like Sarah McLachlan all day when we were trying to film.
Oh yeah, she was like screaming music like out her bedroom window.
Deeply expensive to copyright Sarah McLachlan jams coming in. Great.
It was like peak COVID and everybody was insane, and you can tell. Like everybody in the apartment complex was also crazy. So there's a fun part.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that isolation of COVID kind of crept its way into the shoot at all? I mean, I guess it's kind of impossible not to, but you guys kind of had your own little troop together during this. Did that kind of help fight the isolation, or did those strange feelings of the world around you kind of also inform the film?
I think y'all can speak on it a little differently because I stayed in the apartment the whole time. Me and the DP,
it's your spot.
In the apartment. Well, it's Joey's apartment, but me and the DP and our sound guy were sleeping in the living room for the whole time. So I was rarely out in the other world for that 2 week. Oh, I didn't. We shot it in about 2 weeks. Primary or principal photography was all done in 2 weeks, and then we had some pickup stuff. But yeah, y'all might be able to speak on being out in the world a little more, but I felt very isolated for those 2 weeks.
I think by the time we were shooting this, probably around when vaccines were coming out, I think, and you were like getting on a list and stuff.
Yeah, I got a vaccine before I came.
Yeah, okay. So
it was like March 21 is when we were.
You know, we are in Texas, and I was, I think, periodically going and doing a few things here and there with, social distancing and whatnot. So I don't know. I think, seeing people a little bit over that holiday. But yeah, I mean, it was good to be packed in like that and seeing people every day after so long. But
I can speak to it being a lot different, like from Chicago, going to Houston and seeing the different ways that it was being dealt with. I remember talking to Joey before we started filming and him like, where am I going to get that many COVID tests to keep on site in case somebody's exposed and we have to test every day or whatever's going to happen? He made me wear a full plastic face mask on the plane on the way down on top of my surgical mask.
Most popular person on the flight.
Shield.
No question. They didn't even try to give you pretzels under those circumstances, I'm sure. So yeah.
Well, the thing is your ears start to really hurt because I've got my glasses, the plastic, the rubber. Like I had earrings, I had headphones, and I was like, my ears are just gonna pop right out of my head. They're really load bearing more than they're used to.
Those are load bearing ears.
Yeah.
And I have to say that it's kind of amazing the themes that you wove into this, Justin, from your own life. Like you hit on everything from childhood trauma to generational bigotry, which are like, for those of us that grew up in the Southeast, these are themes that we have all around us all the time. And I just felt like, was there maybe a level of catharsis in the way that you approach this? Like, I guess I want to know if it kind of psychologically helped you through that time of COVID as well, because you hit some heavy themes, but you hit them in such like ways that just ooze with charm still, that I feel like you guys really get away with some stuff here that's incredible.
Thank you. It was cathartic. So some of some of the heavier themes were, I had a lot of, me and my wife had a lot of big conversations during COVID, and she was
Sure.
dealing with some stuff with she was dealing with some stuff from her childhood. And so as I was writing, I started kind of leaning into some aspects that we had been talking about with her childhood. And honestly, I guess Amy's character is kind of a stand-in for maybe my wife's relationship with her dad at times. And I didn't tell my wife about it until we were shooting. Like she never, she doesn't like to read my stuff until like the film's done, and she wants to see it completely done. So when it was done, she was like, God damn it. Like she loved it, but she had no idea. She was just completely blown away that like it was, I had wrapped so much of like what we had talked about and like what she was going through into that. And
That's really cute.
it was a nice feeling. Like I guess the catharsis kind of hit me
So you got it.
when we all watched it together for the first time. But yeah,
Everybody from the weed dealing wizard to your partner's own father wound their way into the narrative of the movie, and that's how you guys did it the first time you got together and just did a communal screening, and that was the first time everybody watched it.
yeah, we did it was still in a fairly rough state. I think we even did a completely, like, we did a different cut of the movie. The cut y'all have seen now is 10 minutes shorter, I think, than the cut that we showed at that screening.
Right, and for time stamp purposes, like when roughly is this that the film is in its fledgling finished form?
It was about a year after, so maybe 2022.
Okay. Gotcha.
2022 we did the screening with, it was a friends and family screen, a cast friends and family screening, basically everybody who put up with us during that time, and this was their gift. So
That's
yeah,
the movie was the movie was initially called Dickhead.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's the Dickhead cut, and then we watched it a bunch of times, and then I can't remember exactly, but I guess maybe we just talked to people after that screening and talked to each other for a long time, and then we were like, we tried to do just a test campaign with Dickhead on social, and we were like, can't get that through anything.
Turns out there's a lot of interesting hashtags if you start going into the dickhead forest.
Yeah.
So I'm sure.
Well, we couldn't even get our ads to run. We were trying to run some ads, and like they just were getting denied left and right. So we're like, oh, God, we gotta rethink this.
So yeah,
we ran a Halloween event called the Frightening Ass Film Festival for years that trying to run ads for was the bane of our existence. So I truly feel your pain on that one. Another thing though is, how did you arrive at that final title? You knew someone was going to die. Was it just like, well, someone's going to die, let's just like, I'm curious, because obviously it's the best title ever. It's the most appropriate title ever.
It was our DP, Michael Langhausen. When we were just bullshitting about other titles, I kept going back to like Bad Detective or something, and I was like, maybe that'll work. It's dumb, but maybe that'll... And then I think he was just texting me all day, like his random ass thoughts, and then one of them was someone dies, and I was like, that's hilarious. It's just like it's plain and dumb, and like Justin's other movie was called Nothing Really Happens. And I think I changed the name of that film at some point, but I was like, it's perfect, it's stupid, and it's obvious. And I was like, this was stupid and obvious too. I think we might have to do another movie with a really stupid, obvious title about what's going on in the movie, but man, it's just really random.
Some friends of mine from my Nashville days are the folks in the band Lamb Chop, and I always thought that they released 2 albums back to back called "Aw Come On," and then the sequel "No You Come On," was just like, I just love it when things fit so beautifully like that. So I'm very glad to hear that there was some thought, like with nothing really happening in this one. You're very upfront about the fact that something definitely does happen, and someone meets their untimely end with this one.
Yeah,
I'd really like to see you create a bunch of movies that are titled with sentences. I think that's my favorite part.
What?
Nothing really happens. That are full sentences. Titles that are sentences.
Just very matter-of-fact sentences.
Yeah, just very short, as basic description of the movie as you can get. Nothing really happens. Someone dies. There's a woman in this one. Like...
There's a woman in this one. I love that. Yeah.
It's a chick this time.
That's a chick.
That's the sequel. That's your Aliens, of course.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense that. But yeah, I just this is a film that like we got absolutely bombed with submissions this year, and of the amount of films that we got, there were, I would, and Dustin's still on this call and he can chime in if I'm lying my ass off or getting the number wrong, but there were less than 10 this year that just had us utterly at hello. And your film absolutely is one of those movies. And this is like part of, we know we don't make these films ourselves, but there's like this like almost pride in parentship that we get to share this with our audience now. So it's like, I just kind of like, by way of sort of final question, I don't even necessarily have a final question so much as I want to thank you for this. I find that there's just so much joy in this production, and I think it comes through. And I just think that all of your personalities and all of the little details and things, it sounds like, from your wife's generational trauma to again the guy who's trying to sell you a dime bag when you're on your lunch break, that it all found its way into this movie. It just feels like a very special piece of work. And this is a movie that, like, we always do our little office poll to see what we think will win the audience award winner. And I'm sorry, but my money is on you guys as the not even the dark horse. I feel like the audience is going to really fall in love with this movie and all of you. So I really just want to thank you for letting us share it, and also thank you so much for letting us share it hybrid. I think you're gonna have a lot of fun talking to folks about this in the Discord channel, and you're gonna get some very interesting people that want to deep dive into that time travel lore for you. And I encourage you to lie to those people. You say whatever you want, but like, again, just really truly love this movie. And we felt very fortunate that you sent it our way, and it felt like you definitely had like done your research at least about the festival to some, like I got a farm to table kind of a documentary sent to me this year that I was just like, have you ever looked at anything that we've ever programmed? It's like, so it's nice to feel like a project gets you in the same way that you get the project. So
Awesome.
just by way of like total, creeping you out, making you all feel awkward love session, I just want to say a huge thanks to you, the cast, crew, and filmmaker of Someone Dies. And you're an absolute fool if you don't put this on your watch list for this is me just shaming our audience into making sure that this movie enters their watch list. And really appreciate you guys' time, and can't wait to watch it on the ground too. Like, this is one of those theaters that I'm going to love to be in the back of and just kind of drink in the way that people respond to it. So congrats on one of our favorites this year, guys.